Do you want to explain a little bit what we call the spider network?
Yes, and then I'll probably have Michael jump in and talk a little bit about it too. But what we call the spider network is the actual post-war order that, by the way, morphed into what we have today. This everything we're talking about today did not exist in a vacuum. It was not a discrete event unconnected from any others. What happened in the past is directly precedented what is happening today. It's all the same world. And that gets a little difficult to think about with this kind of stuff because you're like, oh man, Nazis, South America, the CIA, blah, blah, blah. But like, no, we aren't even living in this world's shadow. We are living in this world. Yeah, that's kind of how I think of it. I mean, that I was very unspecific, but basically it is the network of ex-Nazis. Christ, how to explain this? So when America defeated Germany or helped defeat Germany, instead of smashing Nazism, it absorbed it. And then America's sort of process of globalizing this merged ideology of fascism and capitalism and it became this kind of globe-encompassing shadow state. And that is what the series is about.
Yeah, that's what we like to call the
Spider Network.
Yeah, I just read the other day that between 1949 and 1970, the German Ministry of the Interior never had less than 50% Nazi Party members in its leadership positions. Yeah.
That's. I mean, when I talk about absorbing, I mean literally absorbing. A lot of the people that come up in this episode were either members of the Nazi Party, members of parties that were modeled after the Nazis, and quite a lot of them worked with Western intelligence agencies, specifically the CIA, but also just like literally officials from Western governments that had no problem interacting with them and using their services.
Absolutely. And I think if I could sort of be a little tangential here, that
Sure.
One good way to look at it, one good heuristic to make sense of all the stuff we're about to talk about, is the official post-World War II narrative versus the actual one. And the official one, the kind of Francis Fukuyama story, is that, on VE Day, every Nazi and fascist mysteriously disappeared. They all just vaporized. Except the ones who went to the Nuremberg trials, and justice was done. And then for the next, 40-odd years, it was a conflict between liberal capitalist democracy, evil Soviet authoritarian communism, and we won because essentially God was on our side. And from that point on, there is nothing left to history but the inevitable spread of liberal capitalist democracy. One of my favorite things about that asshole Fukuyama is that 3 weeks after September 11th, he wrote a public letter saying, hey, real tragedy, sorry for the families, but I'm still right. I'm not wrong. Everything is still going to happen the way I said it would. So that's kind of the official story. And I think the real story since World War II is about what you could call shadow states or paranational entities that usually begin with some kind of national affiliation and then detach and become essentially their own governments. And for someone in the United States, the CIA would be the most obvious and the most accessible, because the CIA, we're taught to think of it the same way we think of the Department of the Interior, for example, that it's just another government agency that just performs a role. And that's not true at all. That since Allen Dulles took over the CIA in 1953, it has essentially become a shadow government. It has become an organization with its own motives, its own means toward achieving those motives. They may or may not reconcile with the motives of the rest of the executive branch or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think the best point of comparison for the CIA would be the SS. It's a really similar organization in that the SS began as just a security service for the highest members of the Nazi Party, and it eventually came to set up sort of mirror organizations for every single facet of the German government until it was a separate government virtually unto itself. And it was the one that Hitler trusted and relied upon much more than the actual German government because...
Oh, yeah, even the army. I mean, his
absolutely.
relationships with the Wehrmacht deteriorated from basically day two. And he really did only rely on the SS for basically everything, for foreign policy, which way superseded the regular foreign office of the Germany. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Anytime there was something important, the Waffen SS were the people he wanted to deal with because fanatical devotion to the Nazi party and to Nazi ideology was baked in at the ground level, whereas the normal German government was still full of people who were just bureaucrats. And when Nazism came along, they kind of went, whatever. And the CIA would be the most obvious of these organizations to an American, especially an American who, I'm guessing anyone listening to this show will know about all kinds of things they've done in Central and South America and Africa and Southeast Asia and so on. But organizations like this exist all over the world.